Hello, everyone. How are we doing? I am back with another James Bond review. I floored it back in almost record time to try and get on for 11 o'clock tonight. And, well, it's 11:01 right now, but I swear to God, when I clicked live, it was still 11, so I made it in on time. How the hell are we all doing? It's been another week. These just keep rolling around, don't they? We are 6 weeks away from License to Kill. I worked it out earlier, so we're getting ever closer. But of course, we're not talking about that tonight. We are talking about arguably probably the most definitive. Some would say the best. I think even by Roger Moore's own admission, he said that this was his favorite of all of his tenure of the Bond films. We're talking about The Spy Who Loved Me, 1977 film directed by Lewis Gilbert. And when you break it down, basically exactly the same film as You Only Live Twice. Both are good in their own way. And this is probably, okay, whenever you have to like rank a Bond film of like a career or whatever it happens to be, like any Bond film, you have like objectively the best and then your favorite. So in terms of this, I think The Spy Who Loved Me, like the song Nobody Does It Better, this is probably the best Roger Moore film out of his whole career. I will agree with that. As a film, it's the best. It's got everything you need. It's amazing. Is it my favorite? I don't know. I might be more inclined, and I think I have in the past, I have been inclined to watch like Moonraker, even Octopus. Now, Octopussy and View to a Kill, I've only seen the once. So it's going to be interesting sort of going back through those two films again. But I remember absolutely loving those films. Maybe because I'd heard like loads of criticism surrounding Octopussy and View to a Kill. But yeah, definitely not for me. I think that might be my favorite. So there's the best, and then there's your favorite. We've got Carl. Thank you so much for tuning in again, my friend. Hopefully you're doing good. I did. Yeah, no, I had a very good night at the cinema. Thank you very much. And hopefully in 2 nights' time, I'll have a very good night at the cinema as well. Beverly Hills Cop is getting a rescreening, one of my favorite films from the 80s. I've been dying to see that in the cinema. So I don't know if you guys want to hear me prattle on about Beverly Hills Cop once I get back on Thursday night, then just let me know and I can do a review. But yeah, no, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Lots been happening. A lot of music stuff to get practiced, but it's getting done. It's getting done. Taking myself on some hikes as well. I might start posting that more on my socials, actually, which is a fantastic segue. Go and follow me on my Twitter if you want to. That sounded like a demand then. An order. Go and follow me on my Twitter. You can if you want. I occasionally post on there, but more importantly, I post when I'm going to go live with my videos. And then some movie stuff, and maybe I'll start posting some personal stuff up there as well. Like, don't worry, guys, it's not an OnlyFans. I mean, in terms of like the hikes I'm going on and everything like that. No, you have to pay extra for that. You can find me at Hobbit Fan Editor. That's at Hobbit Fan Editor. Go and give me a follow. Why not? And while you're at it, please do subscribe to the channel if you're discovering this video for the first time for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. As I said, if you guys want to see a Beverly Hills Cop review, I can talk about that on Thursday. But in terms of new releases, we've got Elvis Presley, or Elvis, I think it's just called, isn't it, coming out this weekend. I'm going to be seeing that on either Saturday or Sunday. I haven't decided when yet, but the review will be going up Sunday. I think we're looking at like 8 p.m. UK time. And I may have an overseas guest on for that one. So fingers crossed. But that should be a really good, insightful review, I hope, as well. Of course, we're talking about Bond. Let me know what your favorite James Bond film is and who your favorite actor to play Bond is. I think this film cemented it for me that there's that Roger Moore appeal to me. Like, he has to be my favorite. Again, best and favorite. Best for me is Timothy Dalton, License to Kill Timothy Dalton. But my favorite has to be Roger Moore. And of course, let me know what you think of The Spy Who Loved Me as well. That is the film in question that we are about to jump into. Once again, I have no plan for this, so there might be some stalling. There might be a lot of ums and ahs, but we're going to get through it. We get through it every week, don't we? So I always talk about, I mean, like the first time that I ever watched this film. This is the third time that I've watched The Spy Who Loved Me. The first being right before Spectre came out. I was going through them. And I mean, this one's sort of lauded by a lot of people, isn't it? Whether it be from the song, whether it just be from what you've picked up in drips and drabs, the fact that Jaws is in it, you know, the henchman. Um, it's one that a lot of people talk about, and quite rightly so. So I guess I kind of picked up on that the first time I watched it, but I don't know. I just thought it was a solid film. I thought it was okay. And then, of course, I watched it for the second time last year. Loved it, easily in my top 10, probably even my top 5 Bond films, actually. And then watching it again tonight with an almost sold out audience, actually. You can definitely tell which Bond films are people's favorites among, and you know, it goes without saying, this one was almost sold out. There was like a handful of seats in there, and an absolute electric audience. Best audience out of all the ones that I've had every Tuesday so far. It almost felt like you're at a comedy show. You know, like there could be a funny. I don't know if you guys are like this. I'm like this. I can watch a film and there can be like a really funny joke, or I could be watching a comedy that I know I love and that I find funny and that I enjoy. But when you watch something on your own, you might not have as much of a reaction to it. Like, you know, it's funny, you know, you enjoy it, but you don't have that sort of physical action of laughter. But when you watch something in a group dynamic, or you know, I don't know, you kind of let go a little bit more, I guess, of your own inhibitions, maybe. Or maybe you kind of soak up the energy of everyone else and you kind of laugh. And I mean, I always kind of chuckle at the, you know, the James Bond one-liners and everything like that. And I actually forgot how many puns were in this film. I know that's always been a thing with the James Bond films, and especially the Roger Moore era, but my God, there were so many in this film, and they're great, and some are terrible and really bad, but you laugh at it at the same time because it's all part of it. And, you know, I don't want to compare this too much to the Daniel Craig era or anything like that, or No Time to Die. No Time to Die is still very fresh in my mind, of course, because it's the latest James Bond film that we've had. So, of course, it's the most latest one in your mind, really. In terms of the progression of the franchise as a whole. But watching this compared to No Time to Die, it's like there's so much fun in this film, and it's a feel-good film, and it's an exciting film, and it's basically I know there's obviously loads of women out there that enjoy Bond, but it's basically like a film for boys, isn't it? It's, you know, and then, you know, the shooting at each other and explosions and glamorous women and awesome cars and Bonds in like fist fights and everything, and he's going to get out of them. He's the coolest, and that's what it's all about. You know, that's what it should be about. And then you get to No Time to Die, and we'll get to it. We'll get to No Time to Die in a few weeks' time. Comment from Carl here. Says a lot when Bond screening sells more tickets than Lightyear. Yeah, I haven't seen Lightyear, and dude, you know how big of a Disney fan, well, Disney animated and Pixar fan that I am. I've actually got some catching up to do with Pixar films. I haven't seen Turning Red. Well, Disney apparently didn't want anyone to see Turning Red, did they? Oh no, they'll put Lightyear in the cinema, but they won't put Turning Red in the cinema. We'll put a spin-off to Toy Story that no one asked for in the cinema, but an actually original idea, original concept that, you know, animators have worked countless hours on. Oh yeah, no, just Disney Plus it. Yeah, just put it on streaming. Suffice it to say, I am in no immediate rush to see Lightyear, and I probably won't see it at the cinema. I've heard a lot of things about it. I've heard what they've done, and it's just Disney being Disney, isn't it? I mean, the animation looks fantastic, but literally no one asked for this spin-off. No one asked for a spin-off to Toy Story. Anyway, sorry, cycling back to The Spy Who Loved Me. Yeah, so I think the audience really helped with this one tonight. Not that, you know, if the audience wasn't reacting, I'd still have had a great time with it, because as I said, it's one of my favorite Bond films. I think I was just struck with the direction, the cinematography, the sets, the scope of this one. This feels so much grander and grandiose than the previous two films. And, you know, obviously go back and check out my previous reviews. Obviously last week I talked about The Man with a Golden Gun quite handily there. I still have the graphic up for it. There's a whole playlist, actually, 60 years of Bond. That's what we're celebrating. That's what we're talking about. So do go and check out that review from last week if you haven't done so already. Although don't do it right now, because you're getting to listen to me talk about The Spy Who Loved Me. So please stick around. So Roger Moore's first two outings, you know, Live and Let Die and Man with a Golden Gun, don't get me wrong, they've I enjoyed Live and Let Die a lot more. Man with a Golden Gun still has its problems, but there's a lot of campy humor in there, and you know the villains are great. There's memorable stuff when it comes to Man with a Golden Gun, but this feels like a Bond film. This feels, you know, as I said, the scale of this is massive. The jumping from country to country, and you know the gadgets, everything. It's all of the ingredients that you come to expect from a Bond film, just expertly told, memorably told, and just everything, even just on in the cinematography, as I mentioned, of this film is just outstanding. One of my favorite scenes in this film, and I remembered this from last year, and I was really looking forward to seeing it on the big screen. Actually, it's all the stuff in Cairo, and it's when they go to the Sphinx and the pyramids, and they're kind of watching that presentation, you know, the voiceover, and just like the lights sort of scanning over the audience and over Jaws's face. You've got like the green lighting kicking in. I just love that scene because I love how it's a cat and mouse. It's like, I was going to say it's a foursome, but that has really weird connotations, and it'd be a very strange foursome if it was. But you've got Jaws pursuing the guy, I've forgotten his name, and then you've got Bond pursuing Jaws, and then you've got Agent Triple X pursuing Bond. I love that. That's just such a great setup. And as I said, the lighting and the shot choices, the framing, everything within Cairo. The bit where where Bond and Agent Triple X are walking through the pillars as well, right before they get attacked by Jaws. Just like the wide shots where you just take in the scope of these sets and the locations and everything. It's just absolutely wonderful. This is easily one of the best looking Bond films out there, from set design and, as I said, just cinematography, lighting, just everything. I think actually I read that the set that they built for Stromberg's base at the end was obviously massive again. I think they even built the 007 studio at Pinewood specifically for this film, and for that set. And I think the cinematographer, I think he had like deteriorating eyesight, if I remember reading this correctly, and they got Stanley Kubrick. They said they secretly got Stanley Kubrick in, but I don't know how much of a secret it was if it's out there to read that Stanley Kubrick showed up to set. But yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, Kubrick, one of the best directors, showing up on your set and saying, oh yeah, light it this way. I mean, Kubrick, just an absolute master of his craft. Would love to talk about his films on the channel at some point, going through, you know, his entire filmography. I think that would be amazing to do. And yeah, this film just looks incredible. And what a big screen experience as well. I'm so grateful that I got to see this film on the big screen, because it is very much like rediscovering these films for the first time. And that's absolutely the case with this film tonight. The opening scene. Oh God, there's so many great things about this film. It's difficult to know where to start. I love the subversion of expectations. This is subverting of expectations done in a good way, is the opening of this film. So, you know, you have the Russian agent saying like, come in, you know, Agent Triple X, come in, report in, or something like that. And it cuts to this guy in bed in typical James Bond fashion. And, you know, he rolls off the woman and the camera focuses on him. It's great. He is like the main focus in the shot for this. And then it's when the camera pulls back and he gets out of bed, and, you know, Barbara Bach, Agent Triple X, picks up the receiver or the radio, whatever it is, and says like, Agent Triple X coming in, and you're like, oh, she's the agent. Such a great moment. I love that moment. And actually, I'm not going to talk about Bond first on this. I want to talk about Agent Triple X, who does have a name, which I'm going to keep saying. I'm going to mispronounce horribly. Is it Anya Amasova? I think that's how you pronounce it. Played by Barbara Bach. Love the character so much. It's an ingenious agent. It's just a great double bill between these characters, you know, James Bond and Anya going on this adventure together. Completely opposites, chalk and cheese, you know, one's from the UK, one's from Russia, you know, the height of the Cold War and everything, keeping the British end up. One of the best one-liners out of all the James Bond films at the very end of this film. And I think those kind of pairings in films, you either have a pairing where they just instantly fall in love with each other, or you have one where they kind of resent each other at the start and there's a lot of banter and bickering going on, and then by the end of the film they get together. And obviously they choose to go with the latter with this one. But their banter's so great. It's just brilliant. And both sides of it bring it. You know, she talks back to him, he talks back to her. Bond isn't a pushover, and she certainly isn't either. And I love that dynamic. I love the really sassy, fiery Bond girls in the Bond franchises. As I've mentioned, you know, like the ones that are more passive and the damsel in distress ones, they're fine too. And there's absolutely a place for those in the Bond franchise. Of course there is. But I like the Bond girls that have a little more bite, you know, have a few more layers to their character. And you do get those layers. You could argue maybe they don't do as much with this as they potentially could have done, because it's a really interesting concept, but you have the stuff that kind of harkens back to On Her Majesty's Secret Service in the opening scene of this film with the skiing, and, you know, Bond just happens to kill this guy who's chasing him. And later in the film, you get that revelation where, you know, she says that he was the love of my life, basically, and you've killed him, and once we've done this mission, I'm going to kill you as well. It just, you know, they didn't have to add that element into it, but I'm really glad they did. And because it shows that loss that both of them feel. Again, they don't run with this as much as they could. You know, they could go really dramatic with this one, but by the end, they kind of go with the tried and tested Bond getting it on with a woman during the final scene of the film, and, you know, the British are tuning in and watching it happen, basically. Perverts. But I just like that concept, that sense of loss, that, you know, you can love someone, but it's always going to end tragic. If you're in this line of work, it's going to end tragically. It's never going to end well. And that's kind of paralleled as well in a conversation that Agent Triple X has with Bond at the bar. And I completely forgot this line was in the film, but I love the impact that On Her Majesty's Secret Service has, and, you know, With No Time to Die continues to have on the franchise. It was this one and done film. And, you know, it was quite controversial at the time. It was met with mixed reviews, and now it's lauded as one of the best, and quite rightly so. It is. It absolutely is. It's probably in my top 3, actually, on Her Majesty's Secret Service. But just the impact that had on the Bond canon and the character. I actually think that, if I remember rightly, when I did the review and when I read about it, On Her Majesty's Secret Service was probably the most faithful to its source material out of pretty much all of the Bond films. I've never read the book, so I don't know if Tracy does die at the end. I'm assuming it is, if they pretty much followed the book verbatim. I don't know if that's at the very end of the book, you know, a very tragic story that it is. But there's a line in this that Agent Triple X mentions at the bar where she's kind of just dismantling Bond's character, and just, you know, telling him all about his exploits, like James Bond, licensed to kill, has done on many occasions, been on this mission, done this, lost, what is it, married, and then wife murdered or something like that, and he just cuts her off. And Roger Moore's so good as Bond, because he can do the quippy stuff, he can do the comedic stuff, and he's great at that, and he's funny, and he's brilliant. He's just so charismatic and romantic and charming and everything like that, and I'm completely gushing over Roger Moore right now. But he can also do that dramatic every now and then. Now, this is going to be interesting when we get to For Your Eyes Only, because, you know, I've watched that film a couple of times now, and I've disliked it every time that I've watched it. But I really hope, like, I mean, it has happened during this retrospective, you know, going back through this 60 years of Bond, where I have come around more to films, and I found more appreciation for some of the Bond films that I didn't before that totally care for. And I really hope that that's the case with For Your Eyes Only, because when I did that review last year, so many people in the comments were saying, give it another shot, rewatch it. And I haven't rewatched it since then. I mean, that is all going to change in 2 weeks' time when I get to it. Not what the end credits of this film would have you believe. It's like Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only. It's like, no, he won't. He's going to be in Moonraker first, and then we get to For Your Eyes Only. Because it is great to see Roger Moore just show those different sides to his acting, and show those more dramatic sides. I think Octopus is probably the best sort of package of that, where he does some of the craziest, most silliest stuff in the Bond franchise. He dresses as a clown, but it's one of the most dramatic moments of his tenure of Bond, I would say, during that moment in the circus with the bomb that's about to go off. And he's dressed as a clown, and he still brings it. You know, Roger Moore is just an absolute force to be reckoned with. And I just love that bit where he cuts her off at the bar. And I can't remember what he says. He just says something like, careful. And it's so good. It's so good. Oh, this film's just amazing. And as I said, like, I just felt absolutely blessed to be watching this on the big screen, because that opening scene, it's the parachute. You know, it's so iconic. It's easily one of the most iconic shots in all of Bond. I would probably argue that it is the most iconic shot out of all of Bond, next to Sean Connery's introduction from Dr. No. And it's actually kind of funny because when I was driving to the cinema earlier this evening, I was maybe like 2 minutes out of my door, driving down the road, and I happened to look up to the sky, and there was a guy on a parachute. And then I kind of played it back in my head. I was like, oh yeah, the one that I'm seeing tonight is the one with the parachute, isn't it? Of course it is. I couldn't get a good look, unfortunately, so I couldn't tell if it was a Union Jack parachute that the guy had. I don't know. Do you reckon they're filming the new Bond film near my neck of the woods? I don't know, but a happy coincidence. A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. So yeah, I mean, I've kind of talked about Agent Triple X in this, and I do really, really like a character. I think I like her a lot more than I did last time. I like the concept of the character, but I think I do still have the same criticisms. Nothing against Barbara Bach. I'm sure she's a lovely woman. I don't know anything about her in a personal life or anything like that. She, of course, looks incredible. All of the women do in this film. That's just a thing that, you know, that's part of the Bond formula, isn't it? You got to have the glamorous woman, and by Christ, she looks glamorous. She still looks great, actually. She still looks absolutely wonderful. But the performance isn't great. I will say that, sort of like the line reading, I never really get the sense much throughout the film that she's this really capable agent, sort of like on Bond's level. And she pretty much is on Bond's level. That's what she's meant to be. Especially during the ending, because they really kind of don't do much with a character, and she gets, you know, kidnapped by Stromberg, and then she's basically just the damsel in distress. As I've said, I don't have a problem with that, like, as a conceit, but usually the ones that are the damsel in distress, they're consistent throughout the film. You know, they are the more passive Bond girls. They are the more sort of doting Bond girls, and they're usually the ones that have to be rescued. Whereas, you know, Agent Triple X is meant to be this revered KGB agent for the Soviet Union. And they basically don't do anything with the character at the end. She's just strapped to a chair. And, you know, Bond's doing all of his stuff. You know, he's dismantling nuclear bombs, is blowing up people, is blowing through doors. And he rescues her. And then they're kind of running through the corridor, and she's screaming, and she kind of regresses, I feel, towards the end of the film into the more archetypal damsel in distress Bond girl. And I think that kind of does a little bit of a disservice to the setup that they had with the character. You know, they kind of bring it back when they're in the escape pod at the end, and, you know, they cycle back, and she says, you know, the mission's over now, and she points the gun at Bond. I feel like that scene could have had more tension, though, because you know that she's not going to shoot Bond. But I feel like they could have ramped up that tension a little bit more. And then, as I say, it just kind of goes to the bit where I feel like she gives up easily. You know, she loved this guy that Bond killed. And I know that Bond rescues her and everything like that. But then she just kind of shoots the cork, and he says, you know, let's get out of these wet clothes. And then she just fixes him with a coy smile. I mean, I guess that is the charm of Bond. But I feel like they set up a lot of drama with the character and a lot of nuance with the character in terms of a backstory. But then I don't feel like they mind it as much as they could. Maybe that would have been a weird twist at the end, you know, to have gone through all this. You know, we're kind of dialing out of the film now, we're bringing the tension back down, and we're ending on a high note, and then you kind of hit with more of this drama at the end. Maybe that wouldn't have worked. But yeah, Barbara's performance, it's just, there's bits I enjoy. One of my favorite scenes actually in the film, it's always the romantic scenes. I guess I'm just a sucker for romance in my movies sometimes, but it's when they're on the boat. They've just fought with Jaws. They've just drove away. They've traversed across the desert to the Lawrence of Arabia theme. That's interesting. I mean, I know it's a John Barry score, isn't it? So it's kind of like a nice little in joke that John Barry didn't do the score for this, but we're still going to reference one of his other scores. What do we think to referencing other movie scores within the James Bond franchise? Because, I mean, we're going to get a lot of that next time as well, come Moonraker. Because I know that they play the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, don't they? I think there's like a keypad on a door, and it's like doo, 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 or something like that, and it opens the door. What do we think about that? I think in Octopussy as well, there's a snake charmer that starts playing the James Bond theme, unlike the woodwind instrument. How do we feel? So like Lawrence of Arabia kicking in, I don't have a problem with it. it works well, and it probably works well because, as I say, it's a John Barry score, and John Barry usually scores the James Bond films, so I guess it's kind of right at home, isn't it? But yeah, one of my favorite scenes is where you have that romantic moment with Bond and Amasova on the boat as they're traveling. And he says like, oh, I hear that you did survival techniques. And she says that, you know, shared bodily warmth. And I think it's a lot to do with the soundtrack, because you get that beautiful orchestral version of Nobody Does It Better. And, you know, the sweeping strings and everything. Actually, you know, let's talk about the music. Let's talk about the music right now, because I'm on the subject for it. Very interesting score. I don't know why. I always thought that John Barry scored this film. Because, you know, it's one of the most pivotal James Bond films. It's one of the most defining James Bond films, certainly of Roger Moore's career. And I guess I just naturally assumed that Barry, being probably the best James Bond composer next to David Arnold, I just thought he had the gig for this and he was doing it. But due to tax reasons, you do occasionally get that with some of the Bond theme Bond scores where he doesn't come back for it due to tax reasons, which is really, really funny. So Marvin Hamlish did the soundtrack to this one, and I actually forgot how synth heavy and sort of like electronica it is. By Christ, you know you're in the 70s when you listen to this score. But you know what? It's not. I would never usually associate synth with James Bond. You know, usually it's just your full orchestra, it's your sweeping strings and everything like that. But there are still elements of that. You do still get, you know, like when the violins kick in and the sort of sexy, seductive strings come in, and you know, those really romantic songs and everything. You still get all those kind of John Barry ingredients with it. But then there's moments where it hits like 70s disco throughout it. But it kind of weirdly works in a way. It's sort of like this beautiful marriage between, you know, more modern at the time, you know, your electronic stuff and then your orchestral stuff. And it's great. There's some really good musical cues in this. I actually haven't listened to the score on its own, so I couldn't tell you track names and everything like that. But there's some leitmotifs that do get repeated, sort of like the action-y theme that sort of plays during a number of like the car chases and, you know, at the end when all the action's kicking off. I think it's a solid score. I really do. And it works beautifully. And then of course we get to the main Bond theme. What a turnaround I've had with this song over the course of my life, because for the longest time, I don't know why, this was before I'd even seen the film, I'd heard this song, Nobody Does It Better, Carly Simon, and I was never keen on it. I always used to roll my eyes at it and go like, oh Christ. But by God, this is like one of the best Bond songs ever. I know some people would say that this is the best Bond song. I don't know if I'd quite go that far, but this is one that's really grew on me over the years, and it's just an absolute delight to listen to. And I think what makes it special as well is actually the previous shot. It is the Union Jack parachute, and that scene on the big screen. You're waiting for it to happen. You're waiting and waiting, and you're kind of on edge of your seat. You're waiting for it to happen, and then the parachute, you know, deploys. You get the Bond theme, and then it goes straight into this beautiful title sequence as well, which of course Alan Partridge has done now. So I kind of can't watch it in the same way anymore. It's too comedic for me when he's like and swinging on a giant Luger. But it's a wonderful sequence, and it's a beautiful song to go along with it. It's probably one of the most defining James Bond openers, I think, of all time. Certainly the pre-title sequence is the best, I think, and then, you know, Nobody Does It Better, Baby You're the Best. Maybe it is. I don't know. There is an argument to be made there, I think, but just a wonderful song. It really is. It's just chef's kiss. I don't even know what else do I comment about the song that hasn't been said already. It's just amazing. Maybe an argument could be made that Carly Simon is actually the voice of Bond. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you guys. Let's see. Let's talk about the villain in this then. Let's talk about the villain. So we've got Stromberg. Originally was meant to be Blofeld. Of course it was. Because it seems like that is the villain that they always tend to want to go. And I can kind of understand that. You know, he is Bond's main arch nemesis, and, you know, the plan for this would have worked. Probably would have worked perfectly, because it's basically, as I mentioned, exactly the same film as You Only Live Twice. You've got the giant base at the end. You've got monorails again. You've got this megalomaniacal Maniac, instead of a space shuttle swallowing other space shuttles, now you've just got a giant submarine that's swallowing other giant submarines. And, you know, he wants to doom the world, basically, and there's nuclear missiles involved and everything. So essentially, it's exactly the same movie, beat for beat, almost. But, I mean, it's slightly different. It's underwater in this one. It's not a volcano. We've gone from fire to water in this one, I guess. The villain himself, though, Stromberg, I'm actually really glad that they didn't go with Blofeld, because, you know, Blofeld can't be the only villain that you keep going to, and I like when we introduce to new villains. Even if the motive is something very indicative of a Blofeld. But what makes him distinctly different in this, and I actually really, really like it, it's when, you know, he's talking about launching these nuclear missiles and flooding the world and starting a new era and everything. It's basically the plot for next week, isn't it, as well, for Moonraker, that he wants to create this new civilization and everything, this perfect, idyllic world. And he wants to create an underwater world in this, you know, vast station that he's got, and he's gonna flood the world and doom it. And then Bond says, like, how much do you want? You know, how much do you want, Stromberg? Like, what's your angle? Like, name your price. And he looks really shocked, and he says, oh no, you misunderstand me. Like, I'm not into extortion. Like, I can't remember what he says. He says something like, I'm not insane, which is a brilliant line. It's a very self-referential line. And he says, no, like, I genuinely believe in this. Like, this is the future of our world, and I want to see this happen. You know, this is going to be my legacy, kind of thing. And he doesn't want money. Now, Blofeld would have wanted money because he's all about extortion. It's, you know, it's the final initial inspector, for God's sake. So I like the concept of Stromberg. I just don't think he's a very memorable villain. Really, I think what makes him memorable is the set design, in all honesty, because if we're looking at set design, this is easily one of the best Bond films. The underwater base looks incredible. This giant sort of like black, angular, monolithic thing that's just bursting out of the water. It looks amazing. I've always loved the design of that. And even Stromberg's office as well just looks wonderful. You've got the shark tank. Of course, you've got sharks in it because it's a James Bond film, but and even stuff like Team America, you know, which clearly inspired by a lot of James Bondisms in the film too, when you've got Kim Jong-il and he feeds the person to the shark through the trapdoor in an office that looks, you know, very similar in a similar kind of setup. Yeah, the film just looks incredible. Set design, just flawless. It might even be the best Bond film, in all honesty, for that. Then again, You Only Live Twice was also very good with the volcano base too. So I think everything around Stromberg, like the underwater stuff and the base and the set design, is what makes him memorable, because you remember sort of like the motive and the plan and the base and everything that kind of goes along with it. But him as a character, I mean, he's played fairly well by Kurt Jürgens and everything, but there's something lacking with the character. And I don't know if it's, you know, I'm not saying he always needs to be, you know, a good villain needs to be this costumed, wacky, cartoony villain that's memorable. But he's a bit too straight-laced for me. He's almost like the villain once you come to You Only Live Twice. Not You Only Live Twice, sorry. I always get those mixed up. For Your Eyes Only. I think it's Julian Glover, isn't it, who's the villain in that. Now, granted, it's been a while since I've watched it, so when I watch it again, I might really like that villain, but he's one of the lesser memorable villains just because, you know, he's not a Goldfinger, he's not a Blofeld, he's not a, you know, any of the villains from Live and Let Die. You know, he's no Scaramanga or anything like that. He's just Stromberg. He's just Stromberg. I really don't like his death scene, actually. I do find his death scene in this very, very anticlimactic, and maybe that also helps the case with a lot of the other memorable villains. They get like a memorable send-off. They get like a really memorable send-off. Live and Let Die is hilarious with the, you know, the capsule that expands and he turns into like a human balloon. Doesn't look great, but it's really funny and it's memorable. Goldfinger as well, when he gets sort of like pulled out of the plane at the end. This one, he just kind of gets shot through a tube in what I assume is the dick, like, because it's at the level, like there's this tube that he shoots the harpoon through when he tries to get Bond, and then Bond puts the gun in the tube and then fires it back out. So I'm assuming because it's at the level, does he shoot him in the dick twice? But then he just goes crazy, and I think he shoots him in the chest twice as well. And then, yeah, Stromberg just kind of like awkwardly falls into his salad that he's eating on the table, and that's it. You know, that's how you dispatch your villain. So I'm always a sucker for like a poetic death with a villain, like a sense of dramatic irony. So Stromberg always, you know, he's building Atlantis. He has built Atlantis essentially. Like he wants this society underwater. He thinks the future of mankind must move back to the depths rather than being on land. Maybe have him drown or something, or I don't know, have him get fed to one of his sharks because, you know, he's been feeding everyone else to his sharks. It would be cool if he kind of got a taste of his own medicine or something like that. And in a weird way, he kind of becomes part of the ocean, a place that he's always wanted to be. I don't, something like that, like a more memorable poetic end to the character, I think would have helped make him a bit more memorable than he is. As such, he just kind of gets shot and that's it. Let's talk about the other villain in this film. So the henchman, Richard Keel's performance as Jaws. Fantastic. And again, like this is, you could argue that maybe Goldfinger is the defining film of Sean Connery's career where all the ingredients came into it. Personally, for me, I would say that I prefer From Russia with Love as a film. And to me, that is the defining Sean Connery James Bond film. But I understand that sort of the popularity and the ingredients and the formula of the Bond film was probably more set in stone when you got to Goldfinger. And that's kind of the formula that they ran with from here on in, basically. And Oddjob for me has always been like the top sort of like Bond, you know, villainous henchman. But by God, Jaws is in that same ballpark as well. They really, really nailed it. And actually, maybe Jaws is better in a way. You know, he's this juggernaut of a henchman again that has no lines of dialogue, really, at least not until the next film. And here's the thing with Jaws, like, is Jaws more memorable because he's in 2 films as opposed to 1? Because a lot of the other Bond henchmen are really only in the 1 film, now I come to think about it. I know you have characters like Mr. White, for example, when you get to, you know, the Daniel Craig era, but in terms of those really strong, imposing characters, I think Jaws is the only one that makes its 2 movies. So does it make Jaws a better character overall and the best Bond henchman because you've got more story with him? Hell, he kind of gets a character arc between this and Moonraker. He's definitely a lot more villainous and intimidating in this one than he is when you get to Moonraker, because they do some really wacky stuff with his character and obviously give him a girlfriend and everything in the second one, which I actually don't mind. I don't mind that at all. And having such a knowledge of Moonraker that I do, because that is actually, in a weird way, probably the Bond film, well, one of the Bond films that I've seen the most amount of times. Sort of going to this one, I know there is a difference and that he's way more comedic when it comes to Moonraker than he is in this one, but he still gets a lot of comedic moments in this one. There's still a lot of awkward and silly moments with Jaws even in this film. Yes, he probably is more intimidating with it, where he, like, you know, he goes like almost like a vampire to bite someone's neck, and you know, the lighting in that Cairo sequence where the shadows are sort of like cast over his face in the green light. He is like this Frankenstein kind of character lumbering round, isn't he? But there's still some funny moments. There's the bit where he's trying to swipe at Bond and he hits the scaffolding and he gets, you know, caved in under it. There's the bit where he's ripping apart the car and everything, and he picks up this giant breeze block to throw at them, and then he just drops it and it lands on his foot and he reacts to it. So I don't know. There's some funny Jaws moments. The bit where he gets magnetized to the magnet at the end of the film. That's quite a comedic moment. I do love how he has a fight. Jaws basically has a fight with Jaws in this, doesn't he? I love how he has a fight with a shark and wins and bites the shark. That's such a really, really cool stuff. We get another train fight as well. Very, very reminiscent of From Russia with Love. I mean, there's a lot of fights on a train during the Bond tenure. Spectre as well did that as well. But yeah, I feel like I'll have more to talk about Jaws come next week once we have Moonraker. But yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. I mean, I don't know much about the Bond community and the celebrities and the convention circuits and everything like that. But from what I understand, Richard Keel was always like a true gentleman and was always happy to talk about Bond and engage with his fans and everything like that. It's kind of a shame for me that I've come in, I've become a Bond fan so late in the game. And I feel like I've missed out on the whole community side of things. But the people that I've reviewed things with and continue to speak to now as well, some of them from the Bond community, it's a great community. It's a really welcoming community, because there is such a diverse quality, I guess, to the Bond films. There are some really genuinely abysmal ones, and there are also some bloody perfect and fantastic ones, and obviously all the films in between as well. They're always there for a discussion. The audience is always there, and they're just really, certainly as fan bases go, it's easily one of the best and most welcoming and open to different opinions than I can say for some fan bases like Star Wars. And sadly what Tolkien's going to get turned into now as well, from the diehard Tolkien fans and the normies. And I hate saying normies because it makes you feel elitist, but let's be honest, if you're a Tolkien fan, you kind of already are. Yeah, what else can I talk about this film? Maybe some of my favorites. Oh my god, I need to talk about the car. Let me grab some water. I'm going to open it up to everyone else, anyone who's watching. And let's be honest, Carl, you're probably the only one watching out there. So thanks again, man. I appreciate it. But one of the best Bond vehicles in this film. And I'm so torn with what my favorite James Bond vehicle is. And, I know the Aston Martin's a classic, but it might not be my favorite. I don't think it's my favorite in terms of like the Bond legacy. I'm really torn between the car in this film, the Lotus Esprit, or the V8 that comes into it with Living Daylights. I think it's Living Daylights that introduces that car. I have a black car. I like black vehicles. So the V8's just really, really cool to me and sleek. But my God, I actually had, and I'm not a car guy either. Like, I couldn't tell you like, oh, it's the new Citroen NZ7 2.1. I don't know cars. I'm like, what color is it? Does it drive fast? Those are the simple things that I go for with cars. But so I've never really had that reaction to cars before. But when the Lotus showed up again in this one, and I was anticipating it as well. That's the thing. I was anticipating a goddamn car with this film. And then when it shows up and pulls up, I just went like, it just kind of happened. Like a sound came out. It's so cool. Gets one of the best Bond action scenes for me as well. The car chase. Naomi. Oh my God. I'm simping for Naomi in this film. If I'm going to simp for anyone in this film, it's Naomi's character. I love the moment when she's in the helicopter. And I posted it as a GIF earlier when I posted the link for this live stream, where she's driving parallel to Bond and they clock eyes with each other and she winks at him. And then I can't replicate it, but Roger Moore just goes like, he does like a double take and goes, he looks at her like, hey. I love that. It's one of my favorite moments. It's easily one of my favorite Roger Moore moments, and just the way it's shot as well. This action scene is filmed just perfectly. The bit where the camera's kind of following the car on the road, and then the helicopter just goes like vroom, and like veers up right next to it in camera shot. Really impressive stuff. The bit where the Lotus just weaves in between those lorries as well when it's outrunning the missile. You've got one-liners in there. The music's just going 10 to the dozen during that scene. And of course, you've got the lovely Naomi in a helicopter too. And not to mention the underwater car when you get the reveal, the Lotus Esprit dives into the water, the wheels do their thing, and it's basically like a transformer, and it becomes a submarine. It's so cool. It's just so cool. I love the line as well from Agent Triple X as well, where she's I think she asks like where this certain functionality is in the car. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I stole the blueprints to this car 2 years ago." It's a great line. It's a really great sense of world building as well for like other missions that these characters have gone on in the past. I mean, I honestly don't know what else I can say about this thing. If I was going to fire any negatives at this film, the pacing towards the end slows down a little bit for me. The stuff on the submarine, there's only so many times you can watch people throw grenades at each other and flip over balconies and scream. and shoot guns. Like, it's fine. It's, you know, it's a very stereotypical Bond ending climax. As I said, it's basically the same film as You Only Live Twice, isn't it? With like one faction showing up, one army fighting the other army, and there's grenades and shooting at each other in a base. Stromberg, a little bit of a weak villain. I like the concept of the character. I love the set design that accompanies the character, and anything that's underwater with Bond is just has a really cool aesthetic, I think, and we'll get elements of that once we get to For Your Eyes Only as well. One of my favorite shots in I'd probably say film history, not even just Bond, but we'll get to that in a couple of weeks' time. I love the character of Agent Triple X. Barbara Bach's performance, not amazing, but I do like the character, and there are some really nice romantic scenes between Roger Moore and her, and Roger Moore just brings it, doesn't he? Like, he's easily the most romantic Bond, and I think that's why I kind of like him. He's not as hard-edged, although he does have his moments, but he's just so suave and romantic and quippy and funny and just nice. He's just like a nice Bond. He's just a really good action lead, isn't he? And yeah, just the fact that with Agent Triple X at the end, they don't really do much with the character. She just kind of becomes the damsel in distress. And any other time, I wouldn't see that being a problem. I would have actually liked to have seen her get stuck in a little bit more with this one, maybe. But I don't like my criticisms with this don't mar the film at all. That's me really reaching for a criticism if I had to find one. As it stands, it's probably the best Roger Moore film out of his tenure as Bond. I don't know if it's my favorite. I'll let you know once we get to View to a Kill again, because I really love View to a Kill. I really do, and Octopussy as well. So yeah, give it a couple of weeks. We're almost out of the. I keep forgetting just how many Roger Moore films there are. But, you know, watching one a week, it's very manageable. And as I say, I'm just crossing the weeks off now. 6 weeks until we get to License to Kill. And I actually probably should book my ticket for that soon, because last time I checked, it was almost sold out. Even now, even weeks ago, everyone just must have scrolled through the calendar, have gone straight for License to Kill. And as I say, if the audience is there for it, you kind of know which are the best Bond films, and the, you know, the tickets and asses in seats speaks for itself, to be honest. I love this film, absolutely love it. If I'm gonna go, I can't remember if I did this last week. I think I did. This sounds familiar of what I'm saying right now, but if you had to sort of like pick one defining Bond film throughout each actor's career, this is actually a question I'm going to put out to you guys. George Lazenby's the cheat because he only did one film, so you kind of have to include that anyway. But if you were to pick one defining Bond film from each Bond's career, I would probably go... this is kind of also my favorite. No, it's not my favorite. It's the best. Ignore me. Picking the best films from each Bond in terms of their career. Sean Connery, I would say, from Russia with Love. Then you have to pick Lazenby, don't you? Because he only did the one, and it's a fantastic film. So... On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Then I'd pick The Spy Who Loved Me for Roger Moore's career. Goes without saying, I'd pick License to Kill for Timothy Dalton's. GoldenEye for Brosnan's. And then I think with Craig, it's kind of a toss-up really between Casino Royale and Skyfall. Now, as a film, I by far prefer Casino Royale. But if you're going to kind of define the tone of what the Craig era was, which was the really kind of dark and bleak and miserable and postmodern Bond, then I guess you kind of have to go for Skyfall. But I don't know. It's an interesting thought. Which films would you pick? Like your defining Bond films from each Bond's career? I'm coming up to 50 minutes right now, and I feel like I've barely talked about anything in this film. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can talk about, like any lines. I do actually really like one line, and I'm going to bring it up now because I don't want to misquote it because it's really cool. Oh, yeah, here we go. So Stromberg gets a line in the film that I actually really, really like. And they're talking about, you know, he's going to kill millions of people to achieve the goal that he wants. And they say, like, how can you live with that? And I'm going to bring up the quote right now. Come on, computer. He talks about posterity. And, you know, I know that all you Bond fans, if you're watching it right now, he says, I'm willing to accept the judgment of posterity. That's such a great line. That's such a cool line. I don't know. There's some James Bond villains that just get really, really cool ones. One of my favorites is in Live and Let Die with Mr. Big, where he says like, "Names is for tombstones, baby." Love that line, but then I completely forgot about that posterity line as well from Stromberg. So Stromberg, although he's not a very strong villain in my opinion, that's a really good villain line. I gotta give it credit where credit's due. Cole says, I can't wait for your Elvis review as looking forward to the film, but did you know the runtime is just short of 3 hours long? I didn't, but actually, I trust Baz Luhrmann. I do. I love Moulin Rouge. I actually really liked his Romeo and Juliet film as well. I must admit I haven't seen The Great Gatsby. If I did have time before the end of this week, I'd actually quite like to watch that, but I just don't think I'm going to have time to fit it in, unfortunately. So, and there's so much of Elvis's life to cover. So if it's almost 3 hours long and he's going to take his time with it and it's going to be stylish and everything, I'm actually really looking forward to that film now. Because when the trailers came out, I think when the first trailer came out, I thought, it just kind of looks like Bohemian Rhapsody. It's going to be Elvis Presley light. I don't think it's going to be dark or go into, the real story, the real tragic life of Elvis and everything like that. But then we got the next trailer, and actually the last trailer that I got, it almost had a full clip from the film. I think it was taken from Elvis's first television performance, where it caused a massive stir because, he was gyrating his hips and all that stuff that you're not meant to do. And, you watch it now and it's just nothing. It's just performance, isn't it? But back then it was shocking and no one had seen anything like it before. And it pretty much showed the whole clip from the film. So I got more of a sense of the style and the aesthetic and just the kinetic feeling that Baz Luhrmann so often brings to his films as well. And I was like, yep, they've nailed it. The way it's filmed, how frantic it was. And judging from the trailer as well, it looks like we are going to see that Elvis Presley that is strung out on drugs, the uppers and downers and everything, and just the whole course of his career. I think it's going to be a really emotional film. And that's just kind of the power of Elvis Presley's music. I'm a huge Elvis Presley fan with his music. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of his life, his personal life and everything like that. I know drips and drabs, but I'm just kind of a fan of his music. But in the trailer, and this is the power of the trailer, isn't it? Of course, it's marketing. You've got to get the music in there. But when Unchained Melody kicks in, Elvis Presley, and he's belting those notes out at the end, I'm getting emotional now just thinking about it. I just really hope the film does it justice, and I think it will. I think it. By Christ, I hope it does. And yeah, the guest who I might have on for the review. I'm going to keep it a surprise. She did feature in one video many, many years ago on the previous channel that shall not be named, but she knows everything about Elvis Presley, everything. Probably one of the biggest Elvis Presley fans that I know, has watched all the Elvis Presley movies and everything. And actually, those are some films that I would love to watch, like Blue Hawaii and stuff like, well, all of them actually, and just go through them all. Maybe that's a future retrospective down the line. Who knows? But she knows her shit. So I'm just going to be deferring to her better judgment. I'm going to be like, did they get this right? Did they mess around with this? It's hey, Seawa man, it's not Nicola. It's not Nicola. It's someone else. But yeah, that should be because I'm just going to be there, like commenting on the film as it is, like how it went over for me. With the film and everything like that. I'm just going to be reviewing it as a film, but I'm hoping my guest on the review, and I really hope she can make it, is going to be, giving the facts and figures and what's accurate and everything like that. So yeah, should be a good review. I'm basically going to be hanging on her every word because I'm genuinely going to be interested as well in learning more about Elvis hopefully during the course of the review. I don't know how long we're going to be talking for. So as I said, I'll have times and everything going up on my socials, and actually that's a good time to bring up the social again. You can follow me on Twitter right there. You can find me at Hobbit Fan Editor. I'll post all the times close to the time. I think we're shooting for Sunday at 8 p.m, but I'll confirm that on Twitter later in the week. Of course, subscribe to the channel for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. And next week, next Tuesday, I will be talking about Moonraker, sticking with the Bond films. That's going to be Tuesday, the 28th of June at 11 p.m. British Standard Time. It's one of my favorites. It's going to be a fun one to see on the big screen, and I'm really looking forward to talking about that one. But as I mentioned, yeah, Elvis Presley this weekend. And if you guys would like to see Beverly Hills Cop, I am seeing that on Thursday night. If you want to hear me talk about Beverly Hills Cop, I'll jump on a quick little review and my impressions of the film on the big screen. But if not, no worries. We can park it. We can park it to the next review. Oh God, Seaward Man just throwing all those names out of my exes. No, it's not. It's not Seaward Man. Carl says this weekend I'll be seeing Elvis Presley and the Black Phone, the Ethan Hawke horror movie. I think I saw the trailer for that. That did actually look pretty good. You'll have to let me know how that goes. My time's quite limited, unfortunately, on the weekend, so I'm going to have time to see Elvis Presley and basically nothing else. What else am I watching in my everyday when I get the chance? I'm 2 episodes into Stranger Things season 4. It's quite good. I'm enjoying it. It does feel more of a return to form in terms of the tone of it. It is a lot darker. I'd probably say it's the scariest season since the first one. I think the villain's pretty cool so far, but as I say, I'm 2 episodes in, so once I've watched all of them, probably when part 2 is done, I'll do a complete review on season 4 of that. I need to catch up with Better Call Saul. I need to carry on with The Last Kingdom. I finished season 2 of The Last Kingdom, and I've kind of parked that for a while because I've been, watching other stuff. So, but yeah, what stuff have you guys been watching? Have you been watching anything good recently, whether it be TV shows or films? Have you revisited any films recently or watching new stuff? I'm pretty sure she's been on the channel before. I think she's been on one video. I don't know. I think she did. I think she was on the channel. I know she used to comment on the channel, but I'm pretty sure she made it onto a video. Fantastic question, Carl. Actually, I was going to do a status about this earlier. Have you seen the latest photos of the orcs from the new Lord of the Rings TV series? Thoughts? Yeah, so I checked out the pictures. I think I looked at about 4 or 5 pictures. I don't know if they've released more of them. In a weird way, I'd say it's probably the most hopeful thing that's come out about this show since the beginning. It's nice, it's good that they've actually got actors in costume. I'll say that, practical makeup and, costumes do trump CGI orcs. And I don't know how much of that I blame for Peter Jackson, because I did speak to Jed Brophy at Telford Comic-Con a few months ago, and he was saying that it was basically out of his hands. Like, the studio basically made him use so much CGI, and it just kind of snowballed. So, but yeah, if you've got actors in costume and they embody the character and they look like gross monsters, then yeah, I don't think they look as good as the orcs from the Lord of the Rings films, but they look like orcs. I'm going to hate this. Everything is wrong about the series, apart from the orcs so far. So I'm gonna fucking detest the series. If you guys want me to slip into my own sanity when it eventually comes out in September, and you want to see me review and just die a little inside, basically what's happened to Red Letter Media with Picard, that's kind of me with Star Wars already. And, Kenobi's just another nail in the coffin for that. But I kind of don't want to watch The Rings of Power because I don't want Tolkien to be... Tolkien is the one thing that I hold dear in my heart as a fan of something that's just this incredible, monolithic, just triumph of mankind and man's mind with Tolkien. And by extension, his son, Christopher Tolkien, as well. And by extension of that, Peter Jackson with the films, that I don't want to see that be destroyed or tarnished, or you're going to have the normies flooding to it and, loving it like, oh my God, Rings of Power is so good. It's like, just changed my life forever. The representation is so great in it. Like, this is the show that we've always needed. and I'm just going to die inside from hearing those conversations that people are going to be having on social media everywhere, and just fucking loving this series when it's just all wrong and just an absolute abortion to Tolkien's hard work and his legacy. That's the very, very long-winded review, but in terms of the orcs, they look fine. They look like orcs, you know. They look like orcs, so that's as good as it's going to get at the moment, I think. Some of the costumes are a little bit suspect. Some of them are a little bit weird. You've got one who's basically like wearing a skull cap. Maybe it's to keep the sun out of his eyes because, you know, orcs are sensitive to sunlight. But yeah, they look fine. What do you think to them, by the way? Do you like the look of the orcs that we've seen a glimpse of so far? I'm really worried we're going to get another trailer soon. And by God, I'm going to do a live reaction to it. I mean, I did about a 2.5 hour live stream last time before it was deleted due to reasons. That was like a minute long teaser trailer, and I spoke for 2.5 hours on that thing. So if we get a full length thing, Christ knows how long I'm going to be live streaming about that, because if it's talking about Lord of the Rings, talking about Middle Earth, yes, please. I'll talk about that till the cows come home. JX says, hour and a half into No Time to Die is going to pick it up tomorrow. Let me know what you think. No spoilers, please, for anyone else in the comments, because JX hasn't seen it. Let me know. Oh, the ending. Let me know when you get to the ending, my friend. JX says, so far, what an average James Bond film wearing the skin of an average Bourne movie. I think that perfectly sums up the Daniel Craig Bond era, to be honest. But yeah, just the ending. Just let me know once you've watched the whole film. It's from where you are right now, it's very difficult to talk about you can't talk about the film, so get it watched and we can actually have a discussion on it, because I've wanted to talk about that film with you since it came out. Carl says, I have to review it. Okay, I guess I'll be reviewing it then. Rings, yeah, I guess it's duty, isn't it? Probably going to be on the hard stuff for that. Probably have to knock back a few pints to just catharsize the shit fest that is going to be the Rings of Power. JX says, I forget, strong opinions about the lore added to Middle Earth games. Don't get me wrong, it'd be nice to have lore faithful Middle Earth games. I think that probably the best example of that is Lord of the Rings Online, which regrettably I've never actually played, and I'd love to play it. And I'm not a PC gamer by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even know if I'd have the specs on this very old 2011 Mac that I have. But from what I've seen of people streaming it and everything, that looks really good, and I think that is probably the most lore faithful Middle Earth game. Not so much a Middle Earth game, but a mod. I know that you've got Ardacraft that are working relentlessly on creating to scale. I think it's 1 to 58 scale of Middle Earth in Minecraft, and you can see a few videos of those on there. That looks incredible. Very, very lore faithful. But I kind of don't mind if a video game plays fast and loose with certain aspects. It depends what they are. I think where you're going with this is probably with the now I always get mixed up. It's Shadow of War, isn't it? Was the second one, and that I know Shadow of Mordor did play fast and loose with some of the lore in it, but I think that was kind of dialed up a lot more when we come to the sequel, specifically the history of the origin of who the ring wraiths are. Shelob being this shape-shifting woman, very strange choice. I guess with a video game, I just have more of a tolerance for it, I guess, because I can just kind of go, oh, it's kind of doing its own thing. And that's exactly what the Rings of Power is going to be doing. It's going to be masquerading as this grandiose prequels to, the Peter Jackson films, set in that same world kind of thing. but that's just got everything wrong. And the thing is, they have permission to do it. There is no excuse for that. They could adapt it as faithful as they wanted to, based on how much legally the rights they have to work with, and they just haven't. Just everything about it is just wrong, every single thing. So yeah, I guess with video games I just have more of a tolerance, actually. I'm kind of interested to see the Gollum game. Visually that looks very interesting and very different from a lot of other video games we've seen before, and we'll see what they do with the lore in that one. Carl says, love Red Letter Media. They nailed their recent Obi-Wan review. See, I actually haven't watched their Obi-Wan review yet, but I did watch Mauler kind of tear apart all of their arguments on Moolah. I think Moolah's the name of the channel, where he was at every frame of pause, and he went through their review, and Rich Evans says some really, really contradictory things. To be honest, I don't know how they can say that Kenobi's good. Based on what I've seen from Kenobi and the highlight, it just looks like a travesty. Obviously, if you like Kenobi, then hey, power to you. If you enjoy it and you get some fulfillment out of it and you think it's a good depiction of Star Wars, then who am I to argue with you? You know, you like what you like. I should never be ashamed of that. Unless it's The Last Jedi. Sorry, I had to get the pot shot in there. Had to do the pot shot. SeaWorld Man says, do trailer reactions during the week if you can. I would love to. There's been a lot of big trailers come out recently, and there will continue to be big trailers coming out. It's honestly just finding the time between work, between guitar practice, piano practice, music theory, band practice, going to the cinema, taking myself on the occasional hike. It's very difficult to find the time. And I guess I have this sense of guilt, almost like I'll do a trailer reaction, and you know, it's not just the live stream. I've started doing them like live streams because it's less time. But even then, you know, setting up the stream, typing in the video information, doing the tags for it, creating the thumbnail, scheduling the thing. It's a lot of work goes into it, and you know, then you've actually got to talk about the thing as well and do it. That I feel like, I should be practicing guitar in this time because, you know, there's only so many hours in the day, and I really need to get good at guitar, and I really need to get good at piano, and because I have lessons each week, my teachers give me loads of work to do as well. So that kind of demands a lot of my time. So trailer reactions, unfortunately, have kind of fallen to the wayside a little bit. But if a big trailer comes out for something that I absolutely have to talk about, then I'll do it. Of course I will. I think the reason I haven't been doing a lot of the Marvel trailers is just because I'm really checked out with Marvel now, and same with Star Wars. Like, I'm just, honestly, in a sad way, Star Wars is kind of dead to me. How Red Letter Media feel with Picard, that's kind of me with Star Wars now. I'm just kind of, let's just put it to bed. It's done. It's had its day, and it just doesn't hit the same anymore. That being said, I did watch the trailer for the new Lego Star Wars film that's coming out, like the summer vacation one. Maybe the future of Star Wars is funny, humorous Lego adaptations. I don't know. Speaking of Helm Hammerhand, what do we all think to the casting announcement of? I mean, a few of the voice actors have been announced, haven't they, for the War of the Rohirrim, the Lord of the Rings anime? I remember when an anime was announced, and I thought, oh god, this is terrible, and I had like this really reviled reaction to it, like, how dare they turn it into an anime? Like, what are they doing? It should be live action, blah 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 blah. And I forgot that Lord of the Rings kind of had its origin in animation, didn't it? With you know, Ralph Bakshi and Rankin Bass and everything. And in all honesty, if it gets these stories told, you have great artistic freedom when it comes to anime, and you know, they can really make stuff exaggerated and visceral, which if you know the story of Helm Hammerhand, he is all of those things and more. And we've got Brian fucking Cox playing Helm Hammerhand. I think that's an inspired choice. I really do. I think that's fantastic. We've got Miranda Otto coming back as well. as Eowyn, but it's not during the same time period. So I don't know if she's going to be providing the voiceover and she's going to be kind of reading the story and narrating the story of Helm Hammerhand. I don't know how it's going to work, but Miranda Otto coming back into the fold is really cool. And if it's a success, and I really hope it is, and I hope it's lore faithful, certainly more than the Rings of Power is going to be. We hope. I mean, it could go the same way, but if it's a success and it's really good, I could go for more Tolkien stories told through animation and anime. I actually think that's the best way to adapt the Silmarillion. Don't get me wrong. I would love to see a live action depiction of the Silmarillion told well. Of course, with the same love that Peter Jackson had for the Lord of the Rings films, I would like to see a director take that up that has the same love for the Silmarillion. But the Silmarillion is so biblical and epic and, well, yeah, biblical is the only way to describe it in scope, that I don't think you can do some of the stuff in live action. And certainly, like, how are you going to show a winged chariot with a guy piloting this? He's basically piloting a pirate ship through the air with a giant shining light in the front, and he flies directly through a dragon and kills Ancalagon the Black Light. You can't, there is no budget in the world to show that. And a flying pirate ship called Vingalot would probably look a little bit dumb, but you could do that shit in animation. That would look awesome in animation, especially anime. Christ almighty, like a giant flying pirate ship flying into a dragon. That sounds like the most anime thing out there. You just need, some giant robots and tits, and then you've pretty much got yourself a good anime. JX says, the way I see it, Middle Earth Shadow of War is a very lore accurate Elder Scrolls game. Yeah, I would argue with that. Sorry, I wouldn't argue with that. And we're still waiting on that third game, aren't we? I don't know if they've announced when they're making it, if they're making it, what the title of it's going to be, what the plot of it's going to be, if it's on hiatus, if the studio that made it is in dire straits. I really don't know, but they really should finish off that trilogy. Carl says, I love Star Wars, but Obi-Wan is very meh. Final episode tomorrow. No, I have no hype for it. That's the thing. The potential that you have for an Obi-Wan Kenobi series, when you announce that, even with the bad, 7 and 8 and 9, I know Solo has its audience and I know Solo has its fans, but I didn't like Solo either. Book of Boba Fett being an just absolute train wreck. The one thing that I was holding out for was a Kenobi series, because I was like, more than anything Disney's made up until this point, this is the one that has real potential. And watching the series, do you really think it's hit that potential? Can you honestly say, like, as a Kenobi series, have they done everything they could do with that IP of an Obi-Wan Kenobi series? And I mean, maybe some of you could argue that they have. I would argue that they haven't. You could have done some awesome, like, Clone Wars flashbacks. You could have really filled in that gap of that training between Obi-Wan and Anakin. By God, they couldn't even put a fucking de-aging filter on Hayden Christensen. Disney, a multi-billion-dollar company, couldn't even do a simple de-age fix. And yeah, it's just some really bad acting in there. There's just some really bad execution from the direction, in all honesty, and the staging and the sets, and just a lot of contradictory stuff that kind of ruins the OG canon, the original trilogy canon. Yeah. JX says the Lego Holiday Special was a genuinely good follow-up to The Rise of Skywalker. I would agree with that, and that's what I mean. Like, if the only way to make the sequel trilogy palatable is through Lego adaptations, do it. Just do it. As soon as I get some time, my dude, I will. I feel like I need to do some practice first before I go doing an audiobook like that. Carl says, I never understand how a movie studio who has unlimited money and all the talent they want make bad movies. Just feel like we have arrogant screenwriters who feel they know better than us. Yeah, they talk down, they want to preach all that shit. And the thing is, like, I don't know how much of that is beholden on the writers or so much the studio. I don't know if the studio says, okay, you can write this story, but make sure it includes this and make sure it includes this and this and that, and we've got to appeal to this. And it just, most media now just feels really focus grouped. It doesn't feel like a you know, like a spark of creativity of a story that someone really genuinely wants to tell and having the freedom to tell that story. It just feels like studios ticking a bunch of boxes to try and appeal to the mass market, and just thinking that, you know what I'm talking about, the whole representation thing and all of that, just forcing that into every single film in every way, shape, and form that they can. And I think that just dismantles the whole notion of escapism. Like, surely you should just be looking at the story and the characters that you are presented with and connecting with those characters and the hardships that those characters go through and the elation that those characters go through. And honestly, I think that's why Top Gun Maverick's done really good. One of the few films at the cinema recently that I've seen for a second time. I barely do that with films now. I'm lucky if you even get me to the cinema now, but let alone going to see a film twice, and it hit just exactly the same as it did the first time. Why? It doesn't talk down to anyone. It's not overly preachy. It's not overly political. It's just a good, solid escapism film that you can have fun with, that loads of people are having fun with. How much money has that film made at the moment? Like 800 mil or something like that. Repeat viewings. People want to see that film again. People like those characters, like the energy of it, the excitement of it, the thrills, and it's just a really well made movie, and it's a great sequel. I actually took my mum to see it last week because she loves Tom Cruise, and I showed her the original film like a month or so ago. She got hit with COVID, and I kept saying, like, as soon as you're recovered, we're going to see the new Top Gun film. Went to see it, took her out to it, and got out the film, and I said to her, like, well, what did you think of it? And she said, better than the original. And I've seen so many people say that, and I would kind of agree with that I think that the sequel is a much better made movie. It's more of an emotional film. I think it's more of a focused film in terms of exactly what it's trying to get through its story. Which one do I prefer? The first one, because, nostalgia, and it's cheesy 80s glory at its best. But it's Top Gun Maverick is fucking brilliant. And as you said, Carl, love how Top Gun is heading for 1 billion, which just says good word of mouth, and that's all a film needs. It really does. And I fingers crossed. I don't know if it'll make 1 billion. I think it might just fall shy of it, but it's doing fantastically well. It's over 800 mil, and as far as I'm concerned, that's good enough for me at the moment. It's said its piece, but I don't want it to do so well that they go, right, we're going to fast track a Top Gun 3. I don't want a Top Gun 3. I was even questioning whether I wanted a 2. Thankfully, I can say that I did want a second one. They did it really well, but that's it. Like, please don't milk it now. Don't turn it into a trilogy. Not everything needs to be a trilogy or a franchise. Just leave it at the second one now. But yeah, I mean, Cruise is on a roll, and judging from the trailer of how good Mission Impossible 7 looks, I can't wait for that already. I'm really looking forward to that, and I think it's going to be a perfect send-off. And JX, I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you compare what No Time to Die was to what I think that Mission Impossible 7 and 8 is going to be, there's just going to be an absolute night and day difference between those sets of films, I think, for sure. Right. I've stopped talking about James Bond for like the last half hour, I want to say. So, oh my God, it's 20 past 12 as well. So I'm probably going to have to sign off, guys. I like this, though. I like catching up with you and sort of what's going on in the world of movies and what you guys have been watching and everything like that. So this is fun. I like doing this. We should do this more often. But yeah, that'll probably do it for me tonight. Got some guitar practice to do, and probably just guitar practice tonight. I don't think I've got time for piano. Yeah, thank you so much to everyone that's tuned in tonight. This is what I love. This is what I love, when I have people that I can talk to. We build this community. We're building this community very, very slowly, but I just jump on when I want to talk about movies. I enjoy this stuff. I like getting my opinions across with stuff that I want to get my opinion across. If you don't like it, that's great. Let's have an adult conversation about it. If you still don't like it, then you don't have to watch it. But I appreciate everyone that does watch it, that does tune in each week. SeaWorld Man, JX, and of course Carl, you're here every week. Thank you to everyone who's still tuning in and watching. I really do appreciate it. And I've realized that this bottle of water has been in camera shot the whole time, and my dirty laundry on the floor. So I'm just going to conveniently turn the camera this way so it actually looks like a presentable room, and pan up, and oh, look at those films. Look at those films right there. I changed my mind. I don't like this framing. Anyway, Carl says set up Q&A. That is actually not a bad shout. I might take you up on that, actually. Let's do it. Let's do it. When I've got a free weekend again, I'll schedule it on my social medias and all that good stuff. But yeah, I think that's good. We'll do one. We've been long overdue on one, I think. So big thank you to everyone again, and I'll catch you on the next video. Have a good night, everyone. See you.